Hey guys, welcome back to my New York Pro Prep series. So if this is your first time tuning in, my name is John Jewett, IFBB Pro. I am prepping for the New York Pro in the 212 weight class, and I am documenting my diet, my cardio, my weight training, everything leading up to it, and also have my coach Matt Jansen weighing in on information, explaining his thought process behind it as well. So for this episode, I'm going to be covering a few things. I'm covering starting your prep and monitoring progress. Also going to go into one of my heavy sessions of chest and shoulders and triceps. Then also going to be talking a little bit about evaluating research and applying it to bodybuilding. I want to start off saying that right now Matt won't be able to be here this week. He had some family circumstances coming up, but he will be jumping in next week and get right back to explaining some stuff. I will give you an update for this week. I weighed in at 240.2. If you recall last week, I was right around 243, so weight's definitely come down with the changes that Matt made last week. There was mainly a carbohydrate reduction, a little bit in fats, and I'm still doing the 7 days a week of cardio for 30 minutes. And someone was asking about my weight training split, and it's pretty simple right now. It's basically pull, push, legs, pull, push, legs, and then I have an off day. So I'm taking Sunday as my off day. Some of those days are higher rep, low rest period, kind of more metabolic stress days, and some days are heavier loading days. That's how it's structured. So weighing in at 240, weight's coming down, and that's really, obviously I want to be getting leaner and we're trying to retain tissue, but the weight has to come down because I still have about 28 pounds to get down to, and at 14 weeks that leaves me right at 2 pounds per week. And this is something good to talk about when you're planning your prep on how to look at where you need to be at and where you're starting at. And I think that's hard for a lot of people, is to get their timing down right. Now, if you've done a show before, that's great because that gives you a lot of insight. So what I've done is I have pictures along the way. So I have pictures of me at 16 weeks out, 8 weeks out, 4 weeks out, and I have all these saved so I can look back and compare where I'm at and see if I'm at that spot still. So if you got completely shredded and you knew you were as lean as you could be, that gives you a good guide to go off of from a previous prep. If you knew, like, you know what, I really needed about another 4 weeks of dieting, so maybe your 16 week out picture was really 20 weeks out, well, that's a new thing to go off of for your next prep. You say, all right, when I look like this, I'll know I'm 20 weeks out. It also gives you a guide to go off of for your off season. If you're getting a little too soft, maybe you should stay around that 16 to 20 week out look. That way you're not having to diet off so much tissue. Another thing regarding your rate of how much body fat is really allowable, it's going to be different for everyone. Of course, if you're too lean, you won't have optimal hormone levels. It'll be too hard to grow. You might be underestimating your calorie needs and not get the full potential of your off season. But in general, I would say for losing body fat, and there's research showing, like, if there was a study done with, they're comparing, it was in women, over like a 4 week diet, women that were losing 0.5 kilograms versus 1 kilogram a week. So you're looking at, just say 1 pound versus 2 pound for simplicity. The group that was losing 2 pounds a week, the faster weight loss, had a 5% decrease in bench press. They also had a larger lean body mass loss. So that goes to show you, like, if you do need a faster weight loss rate. They also had it was a 30% decrease in testosterone. It's women, but you're just for our argument's sake here. When the faster weight loss rate is going to cause a greater loss of lean tissue. So the slow rate is the way to go, and you can retain more muscle tissue that way. For me, I just have to get down to this weight, and the amount of muscle tissue that I have, there might be some losses along the way. It's just how it might have to be. You can only lose so much fat and deplete so much water at the very end. But I think for a 2-pound rate of fat loss a week, true fat loss is a good point to be at. Even at 1 to 2 pounds, I don't think you really want to be over that. So if you're doing a 14-week prep, something between 14 to 20 pounds is probably reasonable. I think, though, you should also be looking at the percentage of your body weight too, because if you're a 250-pound guy losing 14 pounds, percentage-wise, that's not very great compared to a 150-pound person. So you need to weigh those factors in. But that just to give you some general guidelines, 1 to 2 pounds per week is reasonable, and starting at a good point that is truly 16 weeks out to be ready. If you've never done a prep, I think a good guideline is to find some pictures of people or friends that you know that have prepped, and use their photos as a comparison to how lean you need to be. I don't like going off just like caliper measurements or using like an in-body or underwater weighing, because people get focused on numbers, and sometimes you get to a certain number and that tool that you're using doesn't have the greatest accuracy and you're not actually stage ready. But anyway, that's my little deal on trying to get yourself to the best spot on stage. But let's go over, I'm going to go into my chest, shoulder, tricep workout, and afterwards I'm going to talk about evaluating research. For chest, side delt, and triceps, this is my heavy workout for the week. So I do, like last week I was showing my high rep, lower rest period back workout. Well, this is not the complement to it, but it's the chest workout, just focusing on heavier weight, heavier loads, and giving some longer rest periods. So I'm always going to be starting with 2 compound movements on this day. First movement being flat Smith machine bench press. And what I do is I'm warming up and I work up to 2 sets, 2 rest pause sets, which those are being 1 set to failure, rest 20 seconds, go to failure again, rest 20 seconds, and go to failure again. So it's kind of 3 sets in one. I do that twice. The first time, I want my total reps to add up to about 15. The second time, my total reps adding up to 20. So I'm going to use a lighter load for that second set. Just a good way to extend the set. You can use a weight that you normally would maybe just be able to hit for 8 to 10, but you can keep going with those short rest periods. I've preferred using the Smith machine over just the barbell press simply because I can just feel it a lot more. Using my chest, it's more controlled. I'm not trying to stabilize a barbell. I've used I powerlifted for a long time, like some of y'all might know, and I tend to use a lot of tricep in my pressing movements, and can even bring a lot of shoulder into it. And so using my chest, switching to bodybuilding has been a challenge for me. So I don't even barbell bench anymore. It's just on the Smith from here on out. And I will do Smith Incline Press as a rotation as well. So that's basically like my compound movements are either Smith machine press, a hammer strength press, or some form of a dumbbell press. And those are kind of the mainstays. Anything outside of that's going to be isolation, high rep work that I'm working in other parts of the lift. Still, though, I try to keep my shoulder blades pinned back, keep the chest up the whole time, and I'm really trying to just squeeze my hands together on the bar and get a good chest contraction. I don't want to try to overly access my back, arch my back, but keep my feet planted firmly. Again, I like the Smith machine because, if you can truly hit failure, and if you need to, you see me like crawling out there. I can go to failure, and a lot of times I'm training by myself, so the Smith machine is still a good option. Moving on from there, I went to hammer strength incline press. So let's go with a flat movement, hit mid-lower pec, then move on to like an upper pec movement. And I'll rotate these back and forth. A lot of times I am starting with the upper pec first since it's a weaker area, but I do this for some variety. This one's going to be just three sets, and I just work up to a heavy weight and just stick there for 2 additional sets. Trying to, same form, stick, keeping the scapulas pulled back,
contracted together, chest up, really trying to press and just pull my hands together at the top. And for incline pressing, you have to be careful with seat height, because it's easy to sit too low and use a lot of shoulder. So you really need to be able to feel your upper pec working. So I do like the hammer strength press because it is adjustable. A lot of incline benches you can't adjust them, and you can't get the right feel for them. Moving from there, I did a cluster set. So in these cluster sets, they are just like a superset. So think like that, but all I'm doing is 60-second rest periods after each. And that's just to give a little bit of recovery time so I can put a lot of effort into the next movement. This isn't like a high rep metabolic day, so I do want some rest periods in there, but they are kind of strategic in what I'm picking. So I'm picking a cable fly and then going into a flat press. So I'm using parts of the same pec in this movement, but I'm pre-fatiguing somewhat with the cable fly and then going into the flat pressing movement, so I can use a lot more chest and fully take it out to failure when I hit my compound movement. For these pressing movements, again, the form stays the same, just like with the bench press and when I was doing on the Icarian press or hammer strength press. Sorry. With the flies though, I almost keep an arch in my back, so my chest is really far out there. I like tucking the chin and trying to squeeze the chin with my pecs basically. And I do the same thing. That chin tuck on my hammer strength flat pressing movement takes a lot of the trap out of it, and it's going to prevent you from rolling shoulder blades over. On this one, I'll do 3 rounds and try to stick around 12 reps. Now the reps will be dropping with subsequent sets. So your first set, you might hit right at 12, and then you might be dropping down to, it could be 5 or 6 reps in the last set, but the weight's not changing. So if you are going all out to failure, the reps are going to be dropping down. It's unavoidable, and that's okay. It's just how training is, how we're setting up these sets. For, moving on, I'll start with just my 2 main pressing for chest, and then I'll hit a shoulder pressing movement. So I'm hitting all the big moves first. Next one is a hammer strength shoulder press, and I have this one in the rotation. My other ones I'm rotating in are another seated pin loaded machine press. I'll face the opposite way on it, and then I'll also do a Smith machine military press. The hammer strength press is okay for me. I have a hard time with a lot of external rotation, so I can beat up my shoulders a little bit. I'm trying to work on mobility there. But I just for the variety, I keep it in. On this one, it's just 3 straight sets. I work up to hard set of 10 and just stick with the same weight. Probably on the last set, you're going to be dropping down to around 6 reps, which is, I started off, I hit 10 reps off the beginning, then it dropped down quite a bit from there. So once I have my big compound lifts out of the way, I will go on to doing some clusters for side delt. And it's going to involve some front delt as well, but I'll do a dumbbell lateral and go into a lying cable upright row. And these cable upright rows are one of my favorite things. They keep a lot of good tension throughout the whole range of motion. And also, you don't have any momentum because you're lying there, so you cannot swing back up. But for shoulder safety and for loading, I think they're ideal over any barbell or dumbbell upright row you can be doing. I do start with the dumbbell lateral, and then as my shoulder fatigues, I can move to that cable lateral, because when you're doing upright row, it is kind of a compound movement. You are going to have some bicep involvement. So the shoulders are already fatigued, you can move on, have some other muscle groups coming into play, and push past failure some. And of course, with the shoulder and how the fibers are laid across it, it's good to hit multiple angles on it and tension on this one. So again, the cluster sets at 60-second rest periods after each set. I'm just doing 3 rounds here, 3 sets, and still focusing on about 10 to 12 reps on the first set, all out to failure. And, again, guys, if you go up to 12 reps and you got more and you just go out, go all out, hit 13, 14 reps, and you just note it for next time that you need to drop down, you need to increase weight. So I'm actually got short on time here at the end of my workout, so I normally wouldn't do a giant set. I will occasionally, but not on this day. I usually do heavy work, but I just needed to hit some stuff quick. So this was kind of not the norm for me, but I did a giant set with 3 exercises. I did a easy bar push down, and then I go into a machine press that we have. I use a close grip and I use a band. You can see the band hooked up right there by my left hand to really overload the top where the triceps are going to be engaged a lot. Using the close grip, elbows are traveling close to the body. It's just going to use a lot more tricep that way. And with most pressing movements, mechanically, the load is easier at the top, so use that band to overload it. And then after that movement, I go into a single arm overhead tricep extension. So when thinking about planning your tricep work, I would try to pick movements to where your elbow is in a variety of positions. So something by your side, something out in front of you, something directly overhead. That way it will work all heads of the tricep that way. I would leave one compound movement in there. Or if you do have, say, a good way for programming is if you do have a really weak chest and good tries, you could add in more compound moves to hit both. So you could be doing more close grip bench, dips, things like that to have like a little bit secondary involvement with chest. On these push downs, just try to keep them strict. I try to keep my elbows just are a hinge point, keep them close to the body, pull them down and get a good squeeze at the bottom. My elbows, I try to keep good elbow health, so I'm not trying to just slam the weight up and down and beat my elbows to death. That's not what the goal is here. So I try to have some elbow longevity. And with these these close grip machine presses, you just got to keep those shoulder blades glued back, because once they come unglued, once your traps protract and shoulders come out, you'll start using your shoulders and taking some tricep out of it. For the overhead tricep extensions, the angle will be important here. So I'm kind of scooted out some to where I can get some good tension in the mid-range for the tricep. If you get too close to it, you're not going to get a lot of tension. So your mechanical advantage is kind of going to be increased there. But I did 2 rounds and was just trying to hit 15 to 20 reps on each of my exercises there. So just get a really good pump and just blow them out real quick. That was it.
All right, well, that wrapped up my chest, shoulder, and tricep workout. I want to talk about evaluating research. I made a post earlier in the week, and I was covering a systematic review that came out last year. It was on fasted versus fed state cardio. And basically the conclusion in it was there wasn't a significant difference. So whether you're in the fasted or fed state, the fat loss is the same. The issue with these studies, the review, they started off with like 8,000 studies and met certain inclusion criteria, and it came down to 5 studies. Within those 5 studies, the weight loss in general was not significant. So whether they're fasted or fed, they just didn't lose a lot of weight to begin with. So it's hard to evaluate, would fasted cardio or fed state cardio, what would have caused the greater lean body mass over a long period of time if they had a better calorie deficit, because the diets weren't controlled well. And so We need to factor in these things when looking at research, but it does give some kind of insight. Like for instance, in this study, what the research was concluded is that faster fed state, it didn't have the significant impact. And what should be done is having a more meaningful calorie deficit through diet. And I think this does apply well to like the general population. Is basically don't overthink the minors. Focus on the major thing. Is like, hey, these people just need to exercise. Like one of the studies was they were untrained. Some were females, some were athletes, but how do we really define athletes, the elite level? So it's hard to apply it to bodybuilding, and that's the issue. So you can't go strictly off research at times, but it does give us great insight into mechanisms of how things work, or also possibly how things might play out in the real world with the best control that we can have. Because I've had a lot of people that responded on my post saying, oh, well, for bodybuilding, we use these fat burning compounds and we're in a low calorie deficit and low carbohydrate, or have resistance training involved as well. So there is a lot of variables, and some might say like, well, for me, fasted cardio got me really shredded. Well, that's very, very objective, because you can't pull out all these other variables and what was affecting you that time. I've never had a prep that's been the same. So it's really hard to say like, oh yeah, that did it when I had that fasted cardio or when I didn't. So research is the best thing that we can use to try to validate the methods that we're actually practicing. And we do have to evaluate that and see how much we can really apply that in, once these studies come out. But I think the best approach is not taking extremes, like only going with what someone's practicing or only going with evidence-based research at times, because we just don't have all the information out. So you need to use both, and that's the best way. Why would you not want to use both? I want the most effective means to put muscle tissue on, to drop body fat, to retain tissue as possible. So don't throw these studies out the window and say, oh, it doesn't matter, they're not using bodybuilders, because they still do matter. You just have to take what you can and apply it, but still look at people that have been practicing for years doing something, because they are onto things. And there's been many things that these people have been doing for years and are finally validated by research. But there's also things that we've been doing that have been proven against what they've been practicing, and people have changed. Just like we used to use BCAAs a lot, now people are using EAAs. That's because of evidence-based research that's come about. Same with a lot of the supplements or etc. that we're using. So my point is, don't throw studies out. Use them to what you can. Use all the tools you can to be the best that you can be. Anyway, that is my 14 weeks out. Please, guys, like the video, subscribe, leave me comments below for questions for me and Matt, and we will answer them either in the post, or if it's a good topic, we can address in the video for next week. But anyway, guys,